Welcome to the Social Priority Podcast. I'm your host, Starpanda, and today we take our conversation to the video game industry and their various totally legal business practices. But first, I'd like to introduce producer, voice actor, streamer, and overall entertainer extraordinaire, Jesse Cox.
Thank you so much, extraordinaire. I feel like I have to live up to something now.
No, you can do what you do like every day.
I will try.
Yeah. So what have you got going on lately?
Oh my goodness. Well, this past weekend we just announced a brand new game that I'm the producer on with some of my friends called Gestalt. It is a very cool Metroidvania style game. It's steampunky. It's got RPG elements from some of your favorite, actually our favorite RPGs pulled into it. And it's very, very cool. And so we announced that on Sunday at a charity stream. And hopefully people will go and Google that bad boy. It's on Steam. And it's, wishlist it if you would like. And we also, a few weeks ago, just released Monster Prom 3, Monster Roadtrip. If that is your jam, if you like party games that are also dating sims that also screw over your friends, it's a good time all around. Those 3 games, the 3 Monster Proms. And also, while I'm being shameless, if you enjoy a little bit of tycoon sim in your dating game, Max Gentleman's Sexy Business. If you want to be in the 1800s dating your business enemies and partners, that is the game for you. So I got a lot of stuff out there that I will shamelessly plug. And then like YouTube and streaming and all the other things that I do.
Well, thank you for joining me. No, I'm joking. So those all sound really great, actually. Like, I would love to play like a steampunk. It just sounds really fun. I've been really into what is it called? Signalis lately.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it just came out and it's so good. It's like Resident Evil and what's it called? Silent Hill, like mixed in one.
It's fascinating. I love the kind of I don't want to say old school because that makes me seem 1,000 years old, but that PlayStation era gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense to anyone listening. Yeah, it's that style.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I'll definitely check out those games that are coming out from you guys.
Thank you.
So you've been involved in the gaming industry for a while now. You've produced games and acted in them too. How has your experience been in these parts of the industry, and are there differences and insights you can provide?
Well, I think my role in the games industry is I have one where I am the YouTuber guy who plays games and makes things and does, funny, goofy things. And that's one part of it. And that's sort of like you're on the outside, like an outlier. You know what I mean? You're part of it, but not really. And you don't really see the game side of it. You just play the final product and then you comment on that or you make a video about it. And so you don't see the processes involved. You're just kind of there. And the closest you get is maybe a person in a PR department comes and invites you to a thing, or you get to go to a campus and check out behind the scenes stuff, but you're not really there. And so moving into the production side of things, as a producer, my job is to pay for things to be paid for, look at and play behind the scenes stuff, work with the dev team and come up with solutions to problems, find and get, say, for example, voice actors. Let's figure out who is going to be in this project and how are we going to promote it, that kind of thing. And once you're on that end, you learn to appreciate the other end of final product. And so you can see how things were made and the choices made by people and understand that a lot of the time choices have to be made even if they're not the best choice. You're kind of like, okay, well, this is our first game. This doesn't need to be a massive success. We just need to prove we can make a game, like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so once you're on that side and you learn about it, then you kind of have this, okay, well, what do I want to be in this space? What do I want to be in this world? And so what I've decided to do is when I work with people, I try to be as equitable as possible. I try to be as friendly as possible. It is a job, it's a business. We're all, at the end of the day, trying to make money to live. But I also understand that I'm not the only person trying to make money to live. And if I'm going to invite friends to be a part of my project, I'm going to pay them well, right? If I'm going to hire a voice actor who in one game and I bring them back for a second game, and I'm going to pay them better the second time around. Like, if the first time we can only afford to pay you this much, the next time we're going to go out of our way to pay you better as a thank you for the good work you did in the first game, like that kind of thing. And I really want to be like just a force of good in the industry, which I think is easy for me to do because I'm not a corporation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, big corporations, their whole thing is we're trying to make money for investors rather than we're trying to create passion projects and that kind of thing. Like, I am all about passion projects. And so, I have an upcoming game that's super secret that I'm working on that is 100% a passion project. I imagine very few people are actually going to care or buy it. But the fact that it will be made and be done, I'll be like, I'm pretty pleased with myself. And that's where I'm at, right? That's 90% of what I do is because I'm like, that'd be kind of funny. I'd love to do that. And I think it's a different place than most people come from.
Yeah, that is actually a really good point. Like, you don't really always see those intricacies when just on the side of just playing the game. Like, a lot of people I've seen over the past few years don't really understand like the full scope of what these devs are doing. And I really commend you for like doing your best to treat your like the people you bring on with the respect they deserve. So yeah, that's great, honestly. So
I think I'm fortunate that most devs, or I had this revelation the other day because I saw some streamer friends post about how streaming life was hard and how they felt like they were chasing numbers and chasing viewers and chasing stuff. And I responded trying to be helpful. That was like, well, maybe take the lesson that chasing those numbers and chasing that stuff isn't the smart choice, right? Instead do stuff for you, things that entertain you. And they were like, well, entertaining me doesn't pay the bills. And I hit that revelation of like, maybe I've been out of that space for so long that because I'm doing well, because of my YouTube career, my streaming career, that I can afford to be in this space in my gaming career where I can pay people well and treat people well and be a better boss and not have to stress about, like, how am I going to pay my own rent? Like that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of game devs, when you see people going a more money-oriented route, they're thinking like, I got a family to take care of. And same thing with a lot of streamers and YouTubers. When I'm like, I'll just do stuff you enjoy. Well, they're like, well, I decided to make this my job. And so now I'm struggling to pay bills because this is a tough career. And that's what I'm focused on. And I think the same thing with game dev. A lot of people, their first game is like, I don't have any money. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure stuff out. And if I could just make some bank off this game to make another, like that kind of stuff, I think I'm very, very fortunate that I come from a place that I don't have to worry about that. And I think that's a huge difference in my perspective and outlook.
We have had an evolution in games. The technology has been getting insane and surpassing movies and television in many aspects. But one thing that has felt a bit like a cudgel is microtransactions. The digital goods that cost you more and more, all to eventually go away if the game goes offline or something like that. And in recent years, they have been getting more aggressive, it feels like. How have you been feeling about these microtransactions lately?
It's an interesting place to be in the industry because I think originally the idea of a microtransaction was it's a thing you can buy to add to your gaming experience, and it isn't going to detract from it. It was a great example is if you look at the way early MMOs were, like EverQuest, for example, the rare loot, the thing that was the thing everyone wanted cost you time, right? Like everything costs something in life. It's just a fact, right? And in that case, if you wanted the best loot, it would cost you time. You have to wait in a cave for 14 hours for a dragon to spawn. And whatever guild got it first got the item. And then based on who got it, someone in the guild would get the item, and it would be like, all right, we got to come back and farm that thing again next time. And so it was the amount of time you put in. Then at a certain point, someone realized that, time is money. So if we can sell something that would be of equal importance to a player, we can make some money. The player can get the thing. They can save their time. And that's kind of like the way it was in the beginning. It was that kind of, just like everything on the internet, there was a little bit of innocence to it. And it was like, look, you save some time, we get some money, it's not a big deal. And then the idea of like, well, this thing could be attached to power, it could be attached to game status, it could be attached to bonuses in the game, or this kind of thing. And so then it became about that, and how can we sell power-ups to people, and how and that became a big thing on mobile. I don't think mobile games have ever rectified that. They still do it. You can just buy levels and power and all that stuff, like coins and tokens, and make yourself better and just pay to win.
And now just characters like in Genshin Impact, where you can just
absolutely
roll for different characters that you get.
Exactly. But Genshin Impact, I think, is a fantastic example of what people are willing to tolerate, because at a certain point, everyone was overloaded with all these games that were just trying to get money from you. And the whole thing was about getting money, because companies at the beginning, I think, again, they did this because it was like, look, we'll sell it to you if you're going to pay for it. And then somewhere someone was like, oh my God, guys, we're making more than we ever made on selling games, selling like $6 items on a store. We should do this more. And then other companies saw it and they were like, oh, we should start. And then microtransactions as an industry became all the more important to these companies, because again, most companies are not about making the quality game anymore. They're about getting money for their investors and shareholders, right? And so that's the objective, is how much money can we get? And it's sad, because it got to a point where it was insane, and there was all these, people were like, we're buying power, we're buying all this stuff. And so the company's like, okay, we won't do that anymore. Instead, we're just going to have the coolest looking stuff behind paywalls. So if you want an awesome looking outfit or mount or whatever, you're going to pay for it. The highest quality thing, it's going to cost you. And then they can get away with saying, well, it's just cosmetic, it doesn't really matter. And for a lot of players, you're like, I'm going to buy it. It's worth the purchase for me. And that's where we're at now. And so you end up with something like Overwatch 2, where a keychain in the game costs more than a keychain in real life, dollar amount.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of those literal keychains in those games, like in Overwatch now, where they have the thing you can put on your weapon and stuff.
Right.
Which brings me to another point. Like, they did get rid of the loot boxes in Overwatch, and they started going to a battle pass system. Do you think this is more or less aggressive with like microtransaction wise, or like getting customers to buy their product in like a more aggressive way?
I don't think it had to be. I think the loot box system, in general, loot boxes are pretty predatory because you don't know what you're getting. It's the same thing like when you get one of those gacha things in any game or in real life, right? Even if you go to like a GameStop, the counter when you check out is littered with like, what crazy character are you going to get in this box of unknown items? Like that kind of stuff. It is something that has been around for a while. And, the problem with loot boxes is, because you're not handing someone $1 or $10 or whatever, and it's just invisible credit money, right? A lot of times younger people, and I think this is a problem that I think everyone should, as a former teacher and as a former college student, I very much know that credit card companies and everyone like that is very predatory to young kids, because they don't quite understand that, oh, you're gonna have to pay that back with an interest that is gonna keep you paying forever. And so people are more easily willing to spend money that is kind of invisible air money on things that, for example, is a cool looking gun skin. And it's pretty predatory loot boxes. I think the idea of a battle pass is one where on the surface, it's fine. If you pay and then if you play long enough, you get the items on that pass. Cool. But the fact that Blizzard, for example, their battle pass for Overwatch 2 is the battle pass, the things you get kind of suck. And again, the things you can buy, just flat out buy, are the better stuff. But that better stuff is prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. And then because the good stuff is expensive, the kind of crap middle of the road stuff that you can buy, it looks terrible, but you're like, oh, that must be a deal, even though it's still $20. You're like, why would you pay that? Well, a lot of people have this desire to look a certain way, or this desire to collect everything, or, I'm a victim of this. I'm that person when I go to a convention and they're giving away a free t-shirt. I need that t-shirt. Why? I don't know. I'm not going to ever wear it. I just need to get it. And that compulsion is in a lot of people. And I think a lot of game companies and a lot of people that design these kinds of systems really focus in on how to exploit that. And that, I think, is what sucks, because on its surface, a battle pass isn't bad, but the things they're doing with it and the way they exploit it is pretty awful.
I think I've heard a good amount of people on the customer side say that, like, they have quit some of these games because of the predatory nature of trying to get every single thing in the game. Like all these microtransactions, for instance, in Destiny 2. I'm guilty of playing it like nonstop. So, but I have heard a lot of people say, like, Destiny 2 is still very predatory, and, like, I don't like the way that they do the microtransactions on there. And I don't know if that will grow into a bigger, like, portion of the player base, because I think a lot of people do have that, I guess they have that addiction with Destiny 2 and the gameplay and all that stuff. But, like, I guess, do you think that kind of thing will grow into something bigger, or do you think, I guess, that it's not really at that point where people have that much of a care about that?
Two things here. I think you mentioned Genshin Impact. That is an absolute perfect example. What are people willing to tolerate, right? Genshin Impact is a game that is blatantly, you're going to buy stuff. We want you to buy stuff. You got to get your 5-star character, like that kind of thing. It's just what it is. And people love that game. It is the most expensive game in the world and has made the most money in the world. They are, I think it's like for every dollar they've spent to make it, they've made $15 back. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, they're making a fortune on that game, and people are fine with it. The fan base loves it. I think second, and I wish I had a link for you to show you so you could include this in some way, but there was a fantastic Twitter thread a while back, and it was about, Twitter and all the weird stuff going on there. But I think it relates to everything in life, because it's about human nature. And it was this guy was saying, I'm a person who studies corporations and people's toleration with industries and how long they're willing to use social media and that kind of thing. And I'm often called in to talk to people at high levels about their company and why people don't want to work with them anymore, that kind of thing. And he goes on to say, which I think is very, very true. He's like, look, human beings in general have high tolerance for stuff they don't like. And we're willing to suffer through a lot of stuff we don't like if we can get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. And he is talking, the whole thing's about Twitter, but he's like, if we are on a platform doing social media, and that social media platform screws with us a little, we accept it. If they change some rules or do a thing that we don't like, we accept it. If they keep doing it over and over and over again, we will still, for the most part, accept it. But there will be a time where all of that compounding BS, which in the case of microtransactions, there will be a time, and we're definitely getting there, where all of the, like, nickel and diming and all the things they're trying to do will piss off enough people that people will, in a mass exodus, just leave. And it isn't like very slowly. He was saying that, history shows that when it happens, when people leave a platform like MySpace or whatever, it's within months, everyone's gone. Like, it is fast. It isn't it's going to take a few years for it to trickle down. How do we save this? It's when it starts happening, it happens and happens quickly. And it's exponential growth of people leaving. And the people that he talks to, these companies, they're like, okay, well, how can we stop this? And he will say to them, you can't. Once it's happened, it's over. Even if you're in the middle of people leaving, just cut your losses. You're done. Like, it's finished. Figure out a new way to go forward. And they're like, okay, well, what do we do to fix this? And he's like, literally, don't do all these other, like, don't be bad. Don't try to rip off your customers. Don't try to like sell their information. Don't try to do the bad things that people, those little things that you think you're getting away with. Everyone's taking stock of that. And they're just like putting it in a Rolodex in the back of their mind that when they leave, they have enough, outrage that they're willing to take that step. Because again, people will tolerate a lot of garbage and a lot of BS before they finally pull the trigger. It's just like when you see relationships where it's like, boy, these two should have broken up a long time ago, but they're still doing it because there's some brief hope. That's a big human thing. It's part of our nature. There's a hope that it'll get better. And when you see that there's no chance, you feel justified in being like, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. And I think that's should be a big concern for the games industry, is that as they keep trying to do this and make this a big part of it, just like how people keep trying to force NFTs on people, right? That kind of thing. Eventually people are going to be like, stop, just cut it out. We're done. And that I think they should be concerned about.
Yeah, that definitely feels like it's a collective thing that the game industry as a whole is doing. And I don't know if it'll be like the entire customer base will at once just decide not to play games anymore. But like, I think it'll be more like with all these battle passes and like extra DLCs. Like, there are some games that have like weird DLC that like is just cosmetic, but it's like $50 or something. And I think that can be compounding enough that like people start just not caring about it. Like these kinds of games that just like keep compounding the microtransactions. And I think you're right on that. Like, I think I remember seeing that tweet because it really resonated in that the industry and like all these places like Twitter and Facebook and all that, everything in the digital age has that compounding thing where it'll bring you to a slow boil. It's like putting a frog in a pot of boiling water. And it's tough to decipher how much is actually like too much, but I think they're going to need to figure it out before it gets bad enough that everyone starts leaving immediately.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, again, you hope that they'll figure it out. You hope that their better angels will come through and they'll be like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. But I very much know that the people who think that are not the people in charge. Because again, the people in charge, their only purpose, like a CEO of a giant AAA studio, they're not there for games. They're there to make income, passive income for the people that invested in their company.
Yeah.
If they don't keep increasing profits year after year, if revenue isn't going up, then they lose their jobs. Their whole purpose is that. So if those are the people at the top, they're making the decisions, then you can understand why, games 10 years ago were vastly different, because every year over year, you have to make more and more money. And the best way to make money right now is microtransactions.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been noticing that like the purpose of these companies is to make money. And if that's going to be the purpose, then I don't think it's going to get better at this point, unless like there's like huge outrage, which I know that the gamer community is capable of, but also if they do it slow enough, it can be to a point to where like all at once people just notice and then leave. So it's gonna be an interesting time in, like, I guess the next, let's say, 10 to 20 years, seeing how this all plays out.
The difference is that the gamer community is, even though community, you know, we say community, but everyone's just kind of like their own player,
Mm.
right? And so everyone has their own expectations, their own ideas of what they think is fun and fair and whatever. And it comes down to, I always think about this. It's just like when you see people be like, what happened to our hometown? We used to have all these mom and pop shops and it was great. And now the Walmart moved in and now Main Street is empty and no one, there's no stores anymore. It's only giant Walmart shops or Costco's. And it's like, yes, that is exactly what happened. Costco came in and destroyed those small stores. But that's because y'all went to shop at Walmart, right? Like, and it's the same thing here where I feel like we have to take some blame for us being like, I do kind of want that. You know, I play Final Fantasy 14. I love that game. The store, the shop, they're like, we put this amazing they put this Lotus as a mount there. And I am a big Lotus, so I bought that in a heartbeat. I'm a victim of it. I'm also responsible, right? And I think that's we all have to look at ourselves and be like, well, we told them this is what they should do because we spent money. We used our pocketbooks to, and that's the big thing is if you want this to stop, you need to stop buying it. But me, I'm hypocritical as hell. I saw this Lotus mount and I was like, I want that mount. I don't care. I'm getting it. And that's the situation at the moment. We can sit here and be like, it's wrong, but that mount looked very cool. You know what I mean? And so I think we all have to, as gamers, look at ourselves and be like, okay, we kind of agreed to this. We said we're fine with it at the moment. And that may change. We'll see. Yeah, you're right. The next 10, 20 years is going to be very interesting.
And I guess in that kind of way, in a little more specific kind of arena in the gaming industry, do you think that the industry is starting to treat its employees with a little bit more dignity? Or do we have like a bit of a way to go?
I would say they're trying. I don't know if they're succeeding. I think the industry for a long time has been just like nerd culture in general. For a long time was the bastion of like the nerdy white kid, the actually nerdy white man boy, right? And that was kind of like their club. And over the years, more and more people have been interested in joining that club or being a part of that space. And you know, it can be threatening for a lot of people. And the norms of that culture must change based on the inclusion of new people. And I think you're seeing that pushback now where, you know, 30 years ago, a bunch of dudes like sitting in an office cracking jokes about like the hot girl was something that happened frequently. And now you're seeing that like, hey, we shouldn't do that anymore. Things are different. We're trying to change, we're trying to be more inclusive and more welcoming. And some people, maybe they don't like when you sit there and make like a boob joke. So maybe don't do that. And it's not that hard to change. Like, I think that's people get all upset like, oh, but what about it's fine. Like, it's not, that didn't define your life, my dude. Like, being the guy who made the crass jokes of The Office, that isn't who you are as a person. So like, it's fine to just, oh, I want this person to feel comfortable in the workplace. Easy. All right. I will just make them feel comfortable in the workplace. Like, it's not that big of an ask. But I think people are mad because it's like, there was a time when we didn't have to do that stuff. And I missed that time. And so there's gonna be a lot of back and forth and pushback. And you're gonna see more and more people come out with stories about really awful office things. And even just gaming and game production in general, you see a lot of people who are now the heads of companies who have been in the game industry for 20, 30, 40 years. And they'll say stuff when people are like, crunch is bad. They'll come hit you back with like, well, when I was young, we hiked up hill both ways to get to crunch. And we like that kind of stuff. It's a badge of honor for them because they went through it. And now other people should have to if I did it, you should do it too. It's the exact same thing when people talk about repaying student loans, where it's like, well, if I had to repay all my loans, you should too. But it's like, shouldn't we talk about the actual problem instead of just us fighting with each other? And I think that's kind of where we're at in the space, is a lot of people are just stuck in their ways. And as more and more people get involved, it's like when you see dudes online complain about like, oh, my game has all these women in it now. It's like, bro, 20 years ago, you would be craving this. What is the matter with you? The fact that someone has a common interest in the thing that you like, and now you're like, don't come to this thing, you're out of your mind. I think we're at that space where it's trying to figure out what it is. We're trying to figure out where everyone belongs, and we're trying to like be more accepting, but at the same time, you have all these people that are like, well, in my day, it was this way. And it's that inflection point for all this. And we'll see what happens, honestly. I feel like everyone kind of understands that it's just nice to be nice to people. Like, it's good to just be welcoming. And I think more and more people understand that. And it's just going to take time.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like the whole thing within the industry, like treating people better in that way, is sort of like a culture war thing, where like people buy into that idea of a culture war, and like they want to still be able to say the things that they used to say without any consequences. And I think I don't want to say it's an issue per se, but like it's a problem in that I guess people have a problem with change. Like, they got so used to these sorts of things like being the norm that like a different norm feels like a threat to them. And I think we've seen this in various areas of like different industries, and even in like the government, we've seen that where the women in like Congress get harassed by the men in Congress, you know? So I think in that way, like, we do have like a culture problem, but like too many people buying into the idea of being on a side of culture war in that way, trying to prevent things from being too quote unquote woke, is kind of a weird issue that we have right now.
Yeah, I think it's a space where it could use a lot of improvement, I guess is the best way to say. Like, you can see people trying and doing their best, and I'm definitely trying to do my best as well to just make it a space that is welcoming. Even the games we make, I want to make games that everyone can play and find something they love in those games. And so it's just about the effort you put into it. And I think a lot of people are just comfortable, and getting out of your comfort zone scares a lot of people is basically what it is.
Yeah, basically. Um, you did touch on crunch, and that's something specific I want to touch on a little bit. Uh, so we have become a lot more aware about crunch, but I'm not sure if we have gotten past like companies making their employees do crunch. Like, I'm not in there, you know. So like I don't know if these companies are actually making improvements to that. Have you seen anything in that way in the industry, that they're like trying to prevent people from actually crunching as hard as they have in the past?
Yeah, there are definitely some companies that are changing up work schedules and thinking differently about production timelines. The biggest problem again comes down to money,
Mm.
and it's the idea of, there's on one hand, how much money do we have left? How much longer can we afford to pay people before we have to ship a game? You know what I mean? Like, we already spent $4 million on this thing. We have no more budget. It needs to get done by the end of this month, like that kind of thing. And then there's also arbitrary deadlines set by, again, those big corporate bigwigs, because like, we need to ship 3 games this quarter, and you're one of those 3 games. And if you ain't ready, we're going to ship it no matter what. So you better have a good game, that kind of thing. And it all comes down to kind of that. It's all about, sadly, money. And that's why you see some of these indie devs take 5, 6, 7 years to make a game, because they have a real job on the side, and game making is for fun. They're just doing it to, like, get some freedom of expression out there and creativity. And that's why a lot of those indie games are phenomenal, right? When you look at some of the indie games that take that long and are passion projects, when they finally come out, people are like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And there's some difference there. Not, it's not all the time that the long time passion project is good, but many times that's where those big super hits come from, is the people who actually are just like, I'm not going to rush myself. I'm going to take the time to do this right. That's kind of it's give or take. There's so many different variables.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a perfect example of like the most extreme of crunch has been like with Sega and the Sonic games. Like they rush their games like crazy, and I believe that they did so much crunch with their games, and like they were not like up to standard. Um, but like recently, they came out with a new game where they said they took like 5 years instead of the usual 1 or 2, and I would be very interested in seeing how much, if any, crunch went into that.
Into Frontiers?
Yes, into Frontiers,
That's a
because
yeah.
what was that?
Oh, I was gonna say that's a great question.
Yeah, because like uh, they spent longer to make it, and they've had a huge history making their devs crunch, and it's yeah, it'd just be an interesting thing to see if they like actually kept doing the crunch even though they gave them more time.
I'm curious about some of the other, like there's a lot that I have questions about Sonic Frontiers. Like there it reminds me of another game, Quantum Break. I love Remedy. I think they're one of my favorite companies. But I remember Quantum Break reminds me of Sonic Frontiers in that the first time I saw Quantum Break was about 3 or 4 years before it came out. And the game that I saw versus the game that I played were two totally different things. And Sonic Frontiers is the exact same thing. The Sonic Frontiers that I saw originally way back when was vastly different from the Sonic Frontiers that everyone's playing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious if they got a lot of feedback that was like, this is jank, we have to change stuff. And maybe the reason why it took long is because they remade it. I honestly do not know. But that's the kind of thing that I'm fascinated by. Like, what was the process? And sure, maybe crunch was involved. I honestly do not know.
Yeah, I've been following it a little bit, and I actually haven't seen many uh like videos of like Sonic Frontiers just clearly breaking, like they have been doing with past games in the Sonic franchise. So it'd be really interesting to find that out if they actually did make their devs crunch, because like especially in Japan they have a huge problem with like treating their devs right. Like like just there are so many devs that have been crunching so hard, and like they have such a bad like work-life balance that like it sounds devastating when you hear their stories, you know?
Yeah, I very much feel for a lot of devs because I have a lot of friends who go into the game dev space and they do it with passion and love and they want to be part of the creative process. And on a smaller team, I imagine it's stressful because you're a small team and it's like everyone has to work really hard. And on a bigger team, I imagine it's stressful because it's a big corporate entity and it's kind of soul crushing and what you have to do kind of sucks. And yeah, I wish there was like, yes, game dev is the way to go. But I feel like game dev is kind of like content creation, where it's just you need to really be passionate about it. It needs to be your driving force every day, or else you will burn out so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. There was actually a story that I heard from Bungie, where they had to force their employees to stop crunching because they cared about their game so much. I think this was back in like the Halo days when they were like actually telling their employees to go home. You should stop crunching so you can be healthy in that way. And I do wish that more companies would do that, because like that's a better way to run a company, I feel like, because like you're not running your people into the ground.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, Blizzard I think is an easy example just because I know a lot of the people that work there. I know the space. I've been involved with them for a while. Blizzard's one of those companies that people are passionate about their products. And I think as a company, as on a corporate level, I think they use and manipulate that passion to get people to do longer hours and to like sleep at their office, and because everyone wants to be involved and they want to be a part of it and they love it so much. And I hate that they use that passion to milk them for everything they're worth. And it isn't just Blizzard, it's every big company. Every like the people that are passionate about EA, whoever the hell those people are, those people, like the people that want to work on like the NFL or FIFA or whatever games, they show up and they're passionate as hell, and I guarantee they're also worked to the bone. And it's, you know, it's a sad state of you know, I imagine it's just like the movie industry, right? People are passionate about movies, they go to Hollywood, they want to be in the movies, and they're just broken by the experience.
Yeah.
And if you aren't broken, you stick around long enough, then everyone hopes that that leads to you having like, I'm the producer, I'm the director, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it doesn't always do that.
Absolutely. Most of the time, this is for all my nerds out there. Great book called Freakonomics. Go pick it up. One of the chapters is, boy, I'm going to mess this up, but I think it's something along the lines of like, why is a football player like a drug dealer? And the concept is, we see actors like we see the most famous actors, and we see the most best football players or basketball players, whoever, and we see them as like, that's what I want to be, right? And a drug dealer, for example, when you think of drug dealer, you think of like the kingpin. You think of like the dude at the top living his best life, has the mansion, the guards outside with the guns and stuff. And like we see that kind of thing, and in our minds we're like, one day I'm gonna be that important, or I'm gonna be that talented, I'm gonna be that rich. But we don't process the hundreds of maybe millions of other people that are like, well, I played a little high school ball, but I never made it to college. Or, well, you know, like all the on the street level drug dealers, the ones who go to jail for everything, you know, that kind of stuff we don't process. And we just see we're going to be that. So when you look in the games industry, you think like, oh, I'm going to get to work on the next God of War, or I'm going to get to work on this thing. And oh, I'm going to be in, one day I'll run my own studio and I'll develop a game that I love. And it's that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, most of the time, you're just like, I'm rendered out a level, and that's all I did for this project. And I was told to redo it 3 times, like that kind of stuff. And people don't think that all the time, because we hope for like greatness, and that stuff's exploited constantly in society.
Yeah. Do you have time for one more topic?
Sure.
So I wanted to get your opinion about the aftermath of the Bayonetta 3 voice actor debacle.
Sure.
So after everything is said and done, after we found out everything, like Helena Taylor kind of fibbing on how much she was offered, and I do feel like voice actors overall should be paid more, but do you think the way she handled everything kind of hurt the argument for voice actors?
I don't know if it hurt the argument for voice actors. I think it hurt the argument for her.
Yeah.
She came out the gate not telling the full story. And I don't know if she thought that people would not look into it, or if she didn't think it would get as big as it was. But it's one of those things where all the compounding things, like once people start to dig, like Jennifer Hale is a tremendous voice actor, but also a tremendous person. So I don't think Jen Hale is going to take a role to kind of screw over another voice actor, like purposefully. So, you know, you have to imagine she isn't like, oh yeah, I'll take a cheap role. They're not going to like cheapo Jen Hale. And so, like, you know, there was a lot of people attacking her because they're like, oh, you're the new voice actor, right? And it's like, why would you? Don't attack her. And then when the devs were like, that's not what happened at all, here's the stuff, and they start like, all the tea is spilling and everyone's getting all the information. The thing that came out the end was, okay, yeah, I agree with you. You were underpaid for the 3rd game of a big franchise that's making it sold 1 million, 2 million some copies. That's a lot of money. You should have been paid more. Absolutely. I agree with you. However, whatever kind of like sympathy spin that she tried to put on it, I think she self-sabotaged.
Mm-hmm.
She should have said like, they wanted to pay me. I didn't think that it was as much as I deserved, and that's why I'm not on it. Instead, she was like, it was this, these are the numbers, and I'm gonna like leave some numbers out and that kind of thing. When the real numbers came out, it made her look bad because it was way higher than what she said.
Mhm.
But the thing is, if she would have just not brought numbers into it, I completely agree with her. I still think 15,000 or whatever they're going to pay her is too little for that role.
Yeah.
I still think that's like, me as a producer, I would have paid her more for that. But that's what they chose to pay her. And she has every right to be like, nah, I'm going to pass. And I think that it kind of like blew itself up from there. And she made a mistake tweeting that out. If she was going to complain, she should have just been honest with it. But I feel like a lot of times people try to go for that sympathy bonus, that sympathy bump. And so, now knowing what the game is and knowing the ending, I even understand when the devs were like, look, we know that you don't want to take this role, but we have another role we would like you to play as a cameo thing. Would you do that? And she still said no to that. And I think that was the $4,000 number she was talking about. And now that I know what the game is and I know how it ends, I'm like, oh, I absolutely see what they were trying to do with that cameo bit. And I wish she would have done it. I wish if she didn't want to take the money for the big thing, then at least do this thing, So I don't know. I felt like there should have been more discussion and more talking and more common ground. And it seems like there was a lot of mess behind the scenes, but the information we do know seems like she probably, sometimes I will say this. Sometimes I want to tweet a thing and I'll start typing and I'll look at the tweet I'm about to make and be like, nah, this is more trouble than it's worth. Like, this is going to cause a bunch of people to harass me. I'm like, I don't have a hot take today. You know what? I got 0 hot takes. And sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you just like write it on a piece of paper and fold it up and maybe throw it in a fire and let that thing out into the ether. You got to get it off your chest. Go see a therapist. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's okay not to tweet.
Yeah, definitely. I do remember in that whole debacle, like, she definitely didn't help herself when she threw a little shade on Jennifer Hale.
I didn't like that. Yeah, I didn't like that. Like, she went for Jennifer Hale, and it's like, she's so nice. Don't do that.
She's beloved in the gaming industry. Yeah. You don't want to throw shade at her. But yeah, it was just a whole mess, and I hope that, like, she can find something that she can, like, I don't know. I feel like I hope she learns from this, I guess.
But she's not a game actor. She's like an actor. So I understand what, I think just across the board, actors should, there's movie stars and they're paid crazy amounts of money, but actors in general, like, you don't have to pay. SAG wages are like low. You can get away pretty easy with some, it's not that much to hire a voice actor, truthfully. And I think it should be more, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was a great conversation, and I had some fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you replug your the games that are coming out from you? And
sure.
Yeah.
Out right now, Monster Prom 2, Monster Camp, and Monster Prom 3, Roadtrip. The Roadtrip one is a little bit different than the other 2 games, so definitely give that one a look if you enjoy kind of like a mix of a dating sim and Oregon Trail, if that's your vibe. And then coming soon, probably next year sometime, is Gestalt. Be on the lookout for that. And then Max Gentleman's Sexy Business is out if you like kind of a tycoon style dating sim, if that's something you're interested in. And then you can find me anywhere on the internet under Jesse Cox. That's where I'll be. And thanks for having me.